We have an astronaut in the house.
He asked me whether I'm still interested in becoming an astronaut. And at this moment, 2 hours before, they told us basically how our lives would change. And it's like, whatever I do, it's out of my hands. And now it's 100% in somebody else's hands to decide whether my future will change.
You're not going to join Elon on his Mars colony.
That was just crazy. We are much, much stronger if we actually work together. Whether I'm still interested in becoming an astronaut.
The early days of cloud software.
So this is the main mistake that people are doing.
Where we train the next generation of software engineers.
I said, yes.
Welcome to the 42 Billion podcast, where we explore all issues relating to code, to learning, and to all things technology, more broadly speaking. We love doing that in dialogue. We love learning from people who know a thing or two about what they're doing, about that field. And today we have a very special guest with us. It is my pleasure to introduce to our audience Amelie Schoenenwald, a member of the 2022 European Space Agency. We have an astronaut in the house. Welcome, Amelie. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much.
I am Josef Sühr. I will be hosting this podcast episode, and I can't wait to be diving into everything from your background, from what life as an astronaut looks like, how it feels to you, what you're learning, how you're learning, and also the latest in space tech. Before everything, though, I wanted to start with one super important question. Given all the gloom and doom in the world, how excited are you about the outlook of leaving planet Earth for a while?
I would love to leave planet Earth, but it has nothing to do with what you just said. It's just about the exciting adventure of going there and then returning and telling everybody about it.
So first up, I would love to understand a little bit more about your fabulous world, Amelie. See what I did there? And what it is like being an astronaut. Out of almost 23,000 applicants, you were selected as one of only 17 to join that class of, do you say class of astronauts? The astronaut group, the ESA astronaut group, the European Space Agency, that is. I want you to remember the moment when you received the call, if you received a call, that you made it. Where were you? What did it feel like to you?
So before I answer that specific question, we have to go back about 1.5 years, because this is when I actually applied. So the selection process took 1.5 years, 18 months, and it basically grew onto me. It was part of my life at some point, because I was constantly preparing, constantly waiting for another call to get to another stage. Yeah. And then at some point, I went to the final interview stage, which was just a couple of weeks before we knew that they would announce the astronaut class of 2022. And from that moment on, I knew something changed somehow, because I was still excited and somehow anxious and tense, but I knew now it's out of my own hands. Like whatever I do, it's out of my hands. And now it's 100% in somebody else's hands to decide whether my future will change. And we got the date of the ministerial conference. That's where all the member states of ESA come together and decide the budget. And we knew when it would happen. And about 2 weeks, 10 days before, I got a call from a French number. It was a Wednesday afternoon at 17:22. And it was actually the DG, the Director General of ESA, Josef Sühr, who called me. And with his beautiful Austrian accent, he asked me whether I'm still interested in becoming an astronaut. I said, yes. But at this moment, he told me he cannot tell me yet whether I become a career astronaut or reserve astronaut, and I should be still patient. So
I was going to ask you about this. Yeah. There is, I think, 5 career astronauts in the current class and 12 reserve astronauts.
Yeah.
What's the difference in practice?
So the 17 that got selected are all part of the class, but of course there's a difference. So the 5 career astronauts, they were selected to be full-time astronauts employed by ESA, the European Space Agency. And they were selected in November 2022, and they actually started training in April 2023. So just right after. For us reserves, we actually remained in our everyday normal jobs, the same jobs we had before, but we were just affiliated with ESA. And at that point, we didn't even know whether we would receive training or not. But turns out we did get training in the end.
So when you stood on that podium in Paris, like this, look it up. It looks amazing. You didn't know what was to happen, no? Like it wasn't like next month I'm doing this, in 3 months I'm doing that. How did you cope with juggling those two lives basically that you had then at that point?
So this amazing picture on the stage, 17 of us, and the curtain opens up. It was just an amazing feeling. Mm-hmm. But to be very honest, at this moment, we already knew whether we are career reserve astronauts. They told us about 2 hours before, so there's no tears on stage. And we knew that, but still it was an overwhelming experience because you know this picture with the curtains, right? Mm-hmm. But just picture our view, like from stage down into this ocean of photographers and politicians. That was just crazy. And at this moment, 2 hours before, they told us basically how our lives would change. And you have a lot of pieces and ideas in your head what would change in the end, and it was just coming together.
Like you mentioned that the curtain opened, you have all these politicians sitting in front of you, press, and something that I was wondering about is that you're listed as one of the German astronauts of ESA, like European Space Agency. So I was wondering, why does it feel like Eurovision, where different countries compete rather than all 17 of you coming together as one single unified European team, not leading with the German, like not leading with representative of Germany, but basically of Europe. I was wondering about that. But maybe first of all, do you feel like a German astronaut or like a European astronaut?
I definitely feel like a European astronaut, definitely. Mm-hmm. So I strongly believe that we as an aggregation of nations in Europe, we are much, much stronger if we actually work together. And if you look at it, Germany by itself wouldn't have the financial power to even build up their own space program at the moment. Mm-hmm. We need support and partners to actually be able to do that. And that's exactly why the European Space Agency is such an amazing thing, because there's a lot of other countries that are even smaller than Germany, and we can't even do it by ourselves. So now we all come together, 23 nations, all put together in one big partnership, and that's how we get to where we want to go.
That's the European idea, hey?
Yes, exactly.
So talk us through, since 2022, what happened? Like, what does the actual training look like? What are you training for even?
So we got selected as the 17. 5 of us are already career astronauts and training for a long-term mission of about half a year aboard the ISS, the International Space Station. And there was only 5 career astronauts because we, as the European Space Agency, we're partnering with other space agencies across the entire world. And we don't have many missions left with our partnership with NASA that we can use to send European astronauts to the ISS, because the ISS is supposed to be decommissioned in a couple of years. And we have about 8% of the budget of the ISS, which translates to only a number of missions that we can have until then. So that's the story of the career astronauts. But a lot of things are changing right now. We have the commercialization, we have a lot of big space companies like flourishing and growing larger and larger, and we don't know what will happen tomorrow, let alone in 5 years' time. But ESA wanted to be ready, and that's why they chose a couple of reserve astronauts, just like me, just to be there, ready with a person that can be sent to space very soon.
So when you say very, very soon, or like when the time comes, who decides on that? What are the chances? Are you ready?
So that's
a lot of questions.
It's a lot of questions. Again, we're dissecting here.
Opportunity to unpack and dissect.
So at the moment, I think our position as reserve astronauts, it's a very unique one. I love how many opportunities we get. So first of all, going back to another question you had earlier, we get to have like part-time training, which means that every year I go on unpaid leave from my normal job for about 8 weeks or 3 months even, to go to the European Space Agency Astronaut Center in Cologne. And all of the European astronauts, they go there and train there. And we get to go there for about 8 weeks at a time and have like full-time training at this moment. And then we go back to our normal jobs, and a year after we go back for the training and back and forth. So without having too much impact on our normal lives, we get to go step by step closer to a potential mission. And now going back to the second part, how certain it is that I get a mission, certainty is 0. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we don't have any guarantee at all. So basically, I'm training to be ready for something that might never happen.
Yeah.
And of course, it's tough on the one hand, but also there's a lot of hope out there, and that's what I'm feeding from.
So I think one of my biggest misconceptions about astronauts is that you are an astronaut when you're up in the air, but that's not what it is. No, the job is also getting ready for it, is understanding all the tools, the technologies. In your experience, you're talking about being an astronaut a lot to a lot of audiences. What's a very common misconception that you meet, that people have of the job or the part-time job, the volunteering role?
So I'd like to start with the definition of an astronaut, because there's a couple out there and they all vary.
What's an astronaut?
So some people say you're an astronaut if you crossed the Kármán line, which is an altitude of 100 kilometers. Other people say you're an astronaut when you cross the 80 kilometer or 50-mile altitude, which is the altitude where normal plane engines don't work anymore because the air is too thin, basically, in very simple terms. And you actually need rocket propulsion. Other people say you're an astronaut when you started train or when you finished your basic training. And then there's also the story about suborbital flights. So it's not quite clear at the moment.
So is it fair to say you're an astronaut in training and ready to take the mission?
I love that, yeah.
Great. And I've one question, and I feel like that's a question that you must be met with a lot, but I feel like maybe that's one that's more to be addressed to your male colleagues. So if you don't want to answer it, we'll follow up with them. But I would still be intrigued to get your perspective. Out of those 17 of the class, 8 are female presenting. So far, so good. But you could become the first female German astronaut. And I was like, what? There's never been a female German astronaut? So how equal a workplace is space exploration today?
Yes.
And happy to take that to the rest of the class as well.
Yeah, but I'm happy to answer. So first of all, we haven't had a German astronaut until April this year, April 2025. That actually changed.
Oof.
Yes.
Bad research.
No, actually, that's a very good point here. So the person who went to space was Rabea Rogge. She's from Berlin. So that's a lady you should look up. She actually went on a polar mission, the first polar mission we ever had, on a private mission. And they went for, I think, 3.5 days. It was a very special mission called Fram 2. So that was the first German woman in space. But she was not associated with any agency. So you could actually argue that agencies are not that inclusive yet. But I would have a counter argument, which is exactly what you already said, that 8 of our new astronaut class are women, so almost 50%, which is new. And I'm extremely proud of this because the gender balance in the past looked very different. I would like to add on this one because it's not so much about equality. It's, I mean, it is definitely about equality, but it's also about our historical way of defining which criteria we use to choose people to do whatever job. Yeah. So in the past, a lot of astronauts were test pilots. And guess what? There was not many test pilot women because they were not allowed to. Right. So by default, they couldn't become astronauts. And that changed now. So
the criteria, like the structures underpinning those missions and like selection of astronauts are changing, have changed. And that's a great thing.
I love that too, yeah.
Thank you for letting us in on your life as an astronaut. I want to let you in a little bit on what we're doing here at 42, which is learning. We love to learn. And your academic career took you from a bachelor's degree in molecular biology. I knew I was going to fuck up this word.
Biotechnology.
Biotechnology. ESA, you need to update your pages. A master's degree in industrial biotechnology. See, there it comes. And then during your PhD, you focus on virology, immunology, and then you added a BA, of course, because why not? All this tells me you too enjoy learning a little bit. And I'm wondering, in all those years, what you have learned about learning that you wish you knew as a younger person. Let's go a bit abstract.
Yeah. So what changed for me? I think the learning process itself didn't change so much because I always was drawn towards things that I actually have a passion for, because otherwise there's no point in learning them. Like if you don't really want to do it, of course, there's always parts that are maybe less interesting.
Tell that to a lot of parents who love to see their child go into different directions than their passions would allow them to. Side note.
Yeah, the side note to the parents here is also to support the kids. And I think a lot of parents play a major role, even larger than they actually know, in the development of their child's curiosity. Because it's a lot about opportunities and like being a role model of what learning could look like. So going back to what I think changed for me. So I'm the first child of a lot of siblings, and I didn't have like an immediate peer that I could copy. So in hindsight, I would tell myself that I should look out more for slightly older peers, like not a whole generation, but just a couple of years that I could ask for advice. And that's something that I didn't use much when I was a kid.
I mean, you're setting me up here to talk about peer-to-peer learning. At 42 Berlin, this is how we learn. We take the teacher or the professor out of the equation. We put the problem that's to be fixed in the center of learning. We bring in a bunch of people, activate them to not just consume knowledge passively, but to share how they would do it with their peers to tackle any one problem. I'm wondering if you see peer-to-peer learning elements in what you're doing and how you're trained, like those 8 weeks that you're spending in Cologne with your peers, and like how do you learn from one another? And is the training at ESA so strictly regulated and on such a tight schedule that there isn't any way to learn from one another because it's so strict and tight?
So for our training, we do a lot of different things. So basically, they're setting us up to become generalists. And all of us come from different backgrounds. So we have a lot of military pilots, we have test pilots, we have scientists, chemical engineers, a lot of different profiles we have. And all of us come with their own experiences and their own way of tackling problems, tackling learning, tackling hierarchies. I'm talking about the military personnel here. So it's really interesting because everything we do, it's like highly structured. We're extremely busy during that learning experience, but also it's up to us to proactively ask each other for support and also provide support proactively. So, for example, last year in the first training session, we had a lot of biology classes.
And you're like, hey guys,
exactly.
listen up.
So in theory and also in practice. And whenever I felt it was appropriate, I would chip in and add my own experience to make it more tangible, especially in the lab, because there's a lot of things that you just do out of muscle memory because I've done it like for 13 years. And then you see other people who do it for the first time that just don't know these little tricks and you support. But then vice versa, there's a lot of things that I've never heard before. For example, space engineering, like I'm okay at math, but there's a lot of things like I just didn't know the equations and I didn't know like all the variables that you have to know by heart in order to solve something. And here my peers helped me a lot.
Love that. And I think, it was a bit of a trick question because you always find peer-to-peer elements wherever you go, and I think it's a great way to learn, and it's not to antagonize any other forms of learning. But I think there is so much value in it. That's why I was interested to see how you see the application in your field.
And also, I would love to add. So, for example, for the diving aspect, we also did a lot of scuba diving in a 10-meter deep pool where later on we will submerge Columbus module mock-ups. That's basically a part of the ISS that we use for EVA training. Right. EVA is extravehicular activity, so spacewalks. Right. And some of us...
So Sandy Bullock got lost.
Exactly. Nobody got lost in the end, so I'm very happy about that. But this is also something that's skill-based, but it's also a trust process because you... are in an environment that's maybe not that comfortable for everyone, and you can teach the skills, but people also have to feel comfortable. So the peer-to-peer experience is also very nice because you're kind of on the same level. You trust each other, you respect each other, and people who have maybe a little bit more experience can just give a hand also emotionally somehow to other people.
100%. You have community, like you learn better in community and when you feel safe and trust the other person. So thank you for sharing that. I'm wondering, apart from peer-to-peer aspects of learning in such a fast-moving world and also media world, I'm wondering, do you have any recommendations for where you get your information from? Any podcasts that you particularly enjoy? And that can be both space related, but it can also be the pop culture podcast that you're secretly loving.
This is an unpaid commercial. So I love to be on track with what's happening. So every morning I listen to Handelsblatt. Mm-hmm. That's a news podcast. It's about 6 to 7 minutes. And I listen to it in 1.5 speed.
You're busy.
I'm busy. I don't have time, right? And also, when I have the time in the afternoon, they have Handelsblatt Today, which is like a 40-minute version of what happened in the stock market. So I love that as well. And for personal growth, I love to listen to Tim Ferriss' podcast.
Tim Ferriss?
Mm-hmm.
Take note.
Mm-hmm. It's like once a week. And another one that I really like is Weltraum Wagner. That's a German one. It's 2 guys that talk about everything space. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it was discontinued, but still the episodes are very interesting as well, even though they're not up to date anymore.
It's not even 5 p.m. in Berlin and it's already dark, so we're getting ready also for long evenings of podcast listening. So thank you for that. Now we talked about basically how the sausage gets made. That may be the most German transition I could have thought of. The learning, but what is the actual sausage? Like, what are the applications that the missions are researching? Actually, when we talked about, I asked a couple of people, like, what do you affiliate with or associate with space tech and applications of space tech? And everybody mentioned Teflon pans, so like the coating of pans, and what was the other one? GPS. And that's both been around for a hot second there. So I'm wondering if there is anything that is currently being researched by you, your colleagues potentially, anything that really excites you, that is a technology that will have originated in space.
Oh boy, where do I start? And by the way, that's the most German metaphor I've ever heard.
You're welcome.
The sausages. So GPS has been around for quite a while, and it's actually a really cool project that a lot of people around, or anybody who has access can use it, and it's free basically. And by the way, did you know that we have a European version of GPS as well called Copernicus?
I have not. Is it very successful in the market?
I can tell you it's a bit more expensive, but it's extremely cool because we have a European network, Copernicus, that also allows us to access these data. And you can look it up afterwards. Very, very, very interesting. But to go to my scientific background, what's currently out there that I'm super excited about is all the biology and biotech research that's being carried out about the ISS. And I would like to single out like 2 examples. So during my PhD, I was working on viral proteins, so surface proteins of certain viruses. And what I was trying to do is isolate these proteins, crystallize them, which means that a lot of these proteins have like some kind of array, and they form crystals that are rigid, and then you can shoot lasers on them and get diffraction data. It's very complicated, very techy, but in the end what you can do with that data is to reconstruct the 3D structure of these proteins. Mm-hmm. And by understanding this, you can understand more and learn more about the proteins, and eventually maybe even design drugs or antibodies towards them. So going back to my PhD, it's super hard to make these crystals, and most of the scientists don't even succeed. It's a very tedious process, and in my case it took me 1.5 years to get there. And guess what? It's much easier to do that in space because there's less sedimentation, and actually crystals grow much more homogeneous. And by using that, we already made a lot of progress. For example, in diabetes, we managed to crystallize insulin and make a better suited insulin to treat patients so they can use long-term insulin versions. And another thing that we did is crystallize a certain drug I'm not going to say the name here because it's unpaid commercials otherwise. And this drug is actually for cancer treatment. And you can use that for like a pen that you can use at home. And previously, before this research was conducted on the ISS, you had to go to the hospital to take infusions like twice a month. And it was very tedious, time consuming, but also a lot of money was being wasted by doing that. So that's 2 examples that I love.
That's 2 examples that I also like. I was wondering about, Europe's changing role in the world, European sovereignty. It's all like a super big topic, and also and space exploration, space agencies play a role in this. I'm wondering, like, I don't feel an excitement for space exploration in Europe, and I was wondering, maybe we need another Teflon pan. Like, maybe we need another, like that. Those very tangible applications of research that is just so much easier in space, or brings better results or more reliable results, and have that to also sway public opinion. Do you feel excitement about space exploration in Europe?
I do, but of course I'm also in a bubble, right? Mostly the people I interact with are super excited anyways. But I do feel in the general public that there is an uplift in excitement about space. Because in the past years we had a lot of companies, just naming SpaceX here, for example, that brought a lot of dynamics into this market that has been around for a couple of decades. But now we also see a lot of European companies being formed that are growing and that are actually on an extremely exciting path. And the more these companies are in the news, and they are coming more to the news, the more excitement is out there. And now that we're planning to go back to the moon, I do feel much more excitement. But of course, we're not right at 1969 when people first stepped on the moon.
Person on the moon moment.
We need that again in our generation.
Yeah, let's hope. I also feel like there is a dynamic also, not just with space, but also with the European lens in particular. Maybe second to last question, because we need to wrap up, is in this changing landscape of space tech, space exploration, companies come in and they have a way easier time because they can fail fast and fix things, where Elon can blow up a rocket and everybody applauds him. If NASA would do that in the same manner, it would be highly destructive to that organization. And so I'm wondering, how do you see the role of space agencies, national, international space agencies, changing in a role where private companies play more and more a part? It's a big question to finish.
It's a huge question. I like to single out a certain aspect of this one. So maybe people don't agree with what I'm going to say, but I do believe there's a huge space, pun intended, a huge space still for space agencies, because the commercialization, as the term itself says, it's for commercial purposes. They're supposed to generate revenue at some point. And I see that companies that are coming now commercializing low Earth orbit, so-called LEO, it's like a certain altitude around Earth, and this is being exploited for commercial purposes. Right. And in my opinion, the space agencies have a different, let's say, calling. They are there to explore. They are there to support the commercialization in the very, very early stages. So in my opinion, they should facilitate that commercialization, which they are doing by providing basic research, but also support the explorative aspect, like going to the moon, sending rovers to Mars, sending missions to Jupiter. Like a very, very nice mission was recently sent to Jupiter called JUICE, Jupiter Icy Moons.
It's a great name.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we're going to explore if there's water and if there's potentially life in that water on the Jupiter Icy Moons, the juicy moons.
Juicy planet.
So I think there's space for both. And commercial companies versus space agencies, they both have to work with each other because they couldn't exist without each other.
So one is pushing frontiers, the other one is taking that and turning it into stuff that is turning life on Earth into a better life, hopefully. A last question, really quick one. Are we alone in the universe? Definitive answers, please, only.
So, yes or no?
Yes or no?
Are we alone? So, If I expand from a 3-dimensional coordinate system to a four-dimensional with the time included, I say yes.
You say yes, we're alone in the universe.
We're not alone. Then the wrong answer. We're not alone. So
Are we alone? You say we're not
we're
alone.
not alone.
That was a good clarification, and we need no further explanation. This is for everybody in the audience, you at home, to look up and de-puzzle. I learned a lot. Thank you so much, Amelie. It's been a joy, and I can't wait to have you back. That was it. Thank you for tuning in. Peace out.